for Brandon Ingram, playing like a all-star level player. Obviously, if they are going to win 8 games on the season, he's not going to make the all-star team. Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to another episode of NBA Now. It's your boy Dom, and we're going to get right into things here today. So, today, we are talking about the New Orleans Pelicans, and much more specifically, we're talking about Brandon Ingram. It's a mess in New Orleans. They're the second worst team in the West. They have 2 entire wins on the entire season, and it's pretty much just a dumpster fire down there. Zion hasn't touched the floor yet this season after looking like he was going to start a amazing career after kind of a shaky rookie season. Obviously, we saw what he did last year. We thought that was going to really propel him, and then he is super overweight, broken foot, whatever, not playing at all, and it's a dumpster fire down there for them. Obviously, we know last season they had moves where they'd brought in Eric Bledsoe and Steven Adams, and that worked out terribly because the front office did not prioritize fit. They prioritized names. And now this year, the team is devoid of talent, in large part due to losing a player like Lonzo Ball and replacing him with Devontae Graham. Also, with Zion not playing as well, that is a major factor there that should not be overlooked. But for Brandon Ingram, playing like a all-star level player, obviously, if they are going to win 8 games on the season, he's not going to make the all-star team. But he's averaging 25, 6, and 4 right now. He is also getting about half a block a game and 0.3 steals per game. So, up in points from last year, right around the same ballpark assists, and currently is averaging a career high in rebounds. But they... part of the rebounds also comes from Zion not being there and everything like that. But they look pitiful. I mean, this is a team nobody wants to watch right now. This is a team nobody wants Zion or Ingram to be on. And quite frankly, other than probably New Orleans Pelicans fans, this is a team that, honestly, if I were to look at any team that doesn't deserve to, like, the ownership doesn't deserve to stay or whatever. Not the ownership doesn't deserve to stay, but like the team just needs a complete reset, damn near, would be the Pelicans. I mean, you screwed up the Anthony Davis situation. Zion is, I don't even know what right now, but you guys are a dumpster fire of an organization right now. After looking like, after trading Anthony Davis, it looked like it was going to be a super bright future for this team. Like they had potential finals coming down the line. Obviously, like half a decade out from then, and then, we're a few years removed from that, and they are back to being a pitiful front office, pitiful organization, and overall just a disappointment to the league. When you look at this roster, before we kind of explore some trade ideas for Brandon Ingram, which seems to be pretty difficult, I will say, but when you look at this roster, this is a roster that is pretty similar to what you had last year. Obviously, you traded Lonzo, and you got back Thomas Satoransky. You haven't played Zion this year as well. You went out and you drafted Trey Murphy, and then you traded a first-round pick for Devontae Graham, as well as trading Eric Bledsoe and Steven Adams for Jonas Valanciunas. But when we look at how that kind of ended up for this team, we can kind of see that, Valanciunas is doing his thing, averaging almost 20. Devontae's averaging 15 on, I guess, okay shooting splits. I mean, he's shooting 38 and 35, so he's shooting all right from 3, but under 40% from the field. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, a guy that I thought was going to take a bigger jump than he did. He's averaging 15 on pretty bad shooting splits of 37 and 27. Josh Hart, definitely a great guy around the league. I think everybody respects his game. If you like basketball, he only averages 10 points a game, but, really he's like a 6'4" power forward. He's kind of like a Bruce Brown type of player, where these guys are just hustle guys. They're glue guys for teams, although a glue guy really doesn't matter on a pitiful roster. So, free Josh Hart. Then you have Herbert Jones averaging 7, Garrett Temple averaging 7, Trey Murphy averaging 5. Jackson Hayes is looking like a terrible selection, averaging 5 points. Really, it looks like he's not going to be any better of a player than he was when he walked in the door. And this team just, you have a ton of picks. You've got 2 good players on the roster, and then, 3, because Jonas Valanciunas is pretty good as well. And other than that, it's just a bunch of guys. Devontae Graham and Josh Hart, have roles in the NBA, obviously, but they're no, superstar players or super elite talented players. They just have good roles in the NBA that they can fit. Devontae Graham really should be a 6th man like he was in Charlotte last year. The Pelicans are a dumpster fire. So, moving on from the Pelicans, where do you trade Brandon Ingram? To be honest, it was super difficult for me to kind of try and figure this out when I was looking through this, because when you look across the league, if we start in the East, at the top of the East, there's the Wizards. Okay, I can see pairing up Bradley Beal and Brandon Ingram, but the only thing there is then you're going to be giving up all that depth, and you've been winning with that depth that you finally have around that Bradley Beal. So why would you trade all that away when you're finally winning with Bradley Beal I think they would still win with Brandon Ingram, but to potentially throw a wrench in things and it not work out, right? You're winning right now. I think this is a team that would just stick with winning right now, so it doesn't seem realistic. And really, to make the trade happen, you would be trading away like 5-6 guys, and during the middle of the regular season, that just isn't a realistic trade. Maybe in the offseason you can see something like that happening, but especially during the middle of the season, it just isn't a realistic trade to happen, so they're not really in the ballpark. The Nets, you're not going to trade for him. You don't have the money. The Bulls, same thing. The Cavaliers, I kind of talked about this in my last video. What would you have to give up? You're probably having to give up a fair amount of assets. And if you don't continue to win, this could bite you in the butt. More than likely, you're probably sending Kevin Love in this deal to try and make the money work. You're probably also having to send Colin Sexton, but I don't know if that would be enough, so you're going to have to add picks. You might have to add in some other pieces that you don't want to add in, like maybe a Jetty Osman or some other stuff. And again, that kind of then starts to snowball into a massive trade that just mid-season doesn't seem super realistic for a single player, unless you're seeing a lot of picks involved, which definitely could happen. But how much Cleveland wants to give away all their picks, I don't really know, especially when you look at this team as a team that doesn't have really a ton of other teams' picks. They're kind of sitting with their picks. They've got some other second-round picks as well in the coming years, but no other first-round picks other than their own. So to give up a handful of first-round picks for Brandon Ingram could prove to be detrimental in the future for this team, although it could also help them a lot as well. Plus, the Colin Sexton, Devontae Graham fit would be really weird, and you're already not a good defensive team in New Orleans, so why would you do that? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Then there's the 76ers, Ben Simmons and Zion. It's not going to work. It would work for the Sixers. It wouldn't work for the Pelicans, I don't think, so that's kind of off the table. The Heat don't have the money. The Raptors are super log-jammed at the forward position. The Knicks could potentially make a move. Again, this is going to require a lot of salaries, which I think the Knicks, if they trade for a star, it would be in the offseason because they've got the salaries to match it, and they've got some good, young stuff that they could move, potential guys like Emmanuel Quickley or Quentin Grimes or Obi Toppin. These are some guys that you could move, and they provide some value in a trade along with some of these bigger contracts that they have for some of these veteran players. But again, you're winning right now. You're trying to fight back into the playoffs again for the second year in a row. So trading a large part of your roster in the middle of the season isn't really realistic. The Boston Celtics have started to kind of get things a little bit more together. They're still hovering in that play-in tournament, but where's he going to fit next to Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum? Really nowhere unless you move Jaylen Brown to the 2, and then how much are you paying just those 3 guys? like, who are you having to trade? You're probably having to trade Al Horford, which even then you have to wait longer. Then you're having to trade Marcus Smart, which, I mean, maybe that's something that they're looking to do after some of the comments he made earlier in the season. But again, just doesn't seem super realistic. The Hornets was a spot that I kind of stopped at and I looked at. But lineup-wise, you're looking at LaMelo. You probably want to keep Terry Rozier, having just recently extended him. Unless you're sending away Gordon Hayward. And Miles Bridges has already kind of stepped into the role that Brandon Ingram would have coming here. Now, I think Brandon Ingram is definitely a better player than Miles Bridges, but the way Bridges has played this year and having Gordon Hayward locked up for multiple years, it doesn't make sense for Charlotte to really go out and do this as well when their main priority should be something interior, with their best big man on the roster being Mason Plumlee. Now, obviously, they drafted Kai Jones and they drafted Vernon Carey the year before, as well as Nick Richards the year before. But not a whole lot of interior stuff, so that should be their focus there. Then when you move to the Bucks, not really going to happen. They were capped out. The Pacers, again, this is kind of a weird trade. It was another one I kind of stopped at because you've got, the two big guys, but having just extended Jonas Valanciunas for the Pelicans doesn't make a ton of sense there. And yes, Chris Duarte could do what you want in that starting shooting guard role, and you could move on from a guy like Karis LeVert, but having just brought him in the James Harden trade crap last year, not directly, but in a roundabout backwards trade with the Rockets and whatever to send Oladipo there, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to then move on from him right afterwards. You can't trade Malcolm Brogdon because he was recently signed. And you already have TJ Warren, who, yes, you could move off because he's on the final year of his deal, but how much that entices the Pelicans I don't think it really does. So that, again, kind of leaves you money capped and just weird fit. Probably not going to happen, although he could move to that roster and be a top 2 player, maybe their best player on that roster. The Atlanta Hawks, again, just not a super... They've got the assets and they could make it work. But I just don't like DeAndre Hunter. I think you're still waiting to see what you have with him. Same with Cam Reddish. And then you just drafted Jalen Johnson. So all those guys are going to be playing similar positional spots as Brandon Ingram. You'd probably have to move off 2 of them. Then you're either benching... You're not benching Brandon Ingram, so you're benching one of those guys, which, I mean, isn't a big deal. But you also have Gallinari on the roster, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, although it would be a good secondary perimeter scorer for them next to Trae Young for sure. The Orlando Magic are kind of in a full swing rebuild. Doesn't make sense to trade for an all-star caliber player. The Pistons as well. What are you going to do a Jeremy Grant swap? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Then you head over to the West. Warriors are winning, so they're not going to do it. The Suns are back to the top of the Western Conference after starting off slow. So, I mean, there's a route where you could do it, but you just extended Mikal Bridges. So, unless you're planning to play him at the 4 and somehow make the money work before his contract extension jumps in, you could try and do that. A lot of guys on re-sign stuff, though, so you'd have to continue to wait. And I think that's just a lot of guys that are just going to want the ball in their hand. I know Chris Paul is good at managing that, but Ayton wants his touches to make his money. Booker obviously wants his touches, and Ingram is going to want his touches as well. It just doesn't seem realistic. The Jazz, I don't know if they have the assets to do it, but bringing in like that secondary perimeter scorer next to Donovan Mitchell would be super interesting. Now, money-wise, it's a little bit difficult because you have Rudy Gobert making over $35 million a year, as well as Mike Conley making over $20 million a year, and more than likely Bojan would have to be in the move here. But other than that, you don't have a lot of young assets to offer the Pelicans, so you'd have to throw in a ton of picks, which again seems more realistic, and as a win now team, it does add up. But they are again at the top of the Western Conference, so if they want to do a big shakeup like that, it's not entirely maybe in their agenda. The Mavericks, I think, Porzingis has kind of gotten back to doing some stuff this year, so I would have said yes to him, but also he doesn't really fit with the Pelicans, so that's kind of off the table. Then you go to the Nuggets. Michael Porter Jr. just got extended. Aaron Gordon just got extended. You'd have to at least trade one of them. Again, if you traded Michael Porter Jr., similar mold of player, Brandon Ingram is definitely better at this point by a large margin. And he's also injured right now, so that just That's a whole thing. Probably not going to happen. The Clippers, obviously, PG and Kawhi. The Lakers, they're capped out. The Grizzlies, a team that could potentially make it happen. But you'd probably have to move Dylan Brooks in the move. And what he was able to do next to Ja, I think, is just very valuable to also have that chemistry. So then you're kind of playing around with some stuff. Are you having to move Steven Adams for the money? And then is the Pelicans going to want to take Steven Adams back again? I don't think so. So just kind of a whole weird situation there. Probably not going to happen. The Blazers, kind of interesting. I think that the Pelicans would want CJ back, though, and I just don't think the Blazers want to trade CJ or Dame. I think that's just a core that's locked in. Norman Powell just got re-signed, so although he could potentially be in the move, how much value he really has is left to be wondered, and then the rest of the team doesn't really have much value. The Thunder, I think this would be a perfect spot, but we know the Thunder just trade away for picks. They don't trade picks away for players, so I don't know if they'll ever be a good team, but they're probably not going to do it. I'm going to skip the Kings and come back to them. The Timberwolves don't have the money, and it's not going to fit, really. I mean, you could trade Malik Beasley and kind of try and find a workaround for it. But again, how much do the Pelicans want Malik Beasley to be their return for Brandon Ingram? I don't know. I think really you're looking at the Pelicans more than likely losing this trade, no matter who they trade him to, for the most part. Then you have the Spurs. We know they don't make trades, and the Rockets obviously are just preparing for the draft, although I think him and Jalen Green would be a fun duo to watch. How much winning that would bring right now, I'm not entirely sure, so it doesn't seem like a super smart decision for them either. So if we go and look at the Kings, though, I think, De'Aaron Fox is having a down year. Their coach could potentially be fired. Could a De'Aaron Fox for Brandon Ingram swap maybe work? Potentially. I think De'Aaron Fox would work super well next to Zion. If Zion can come back and be healthy and everything. I know Kings fans, they aren't super happy with his production this year. And having, Buddy Hield and Davion Mitchell and Tyrese Halliburton on the team already makes it easier to move off of your star point guard when you have that many other good guards on your roster. It would also help a much-needed wing depth for them, as Harrison Barnes is more of a 4 at this point. So, that would give you a lineup of a Davion or a Tyrese at the 1. Then you have Buddy at the 2, Ingram at the 3, Harrison Barnes at the 4, and then Rashawn Holmes at the 5. A pretty decent lineup. You could even see a Marvin Bagley being sent away in this trade to maybe get some value out of the Kings from him. How much he really fits with the Pelicans roster, I'm not sure, but maybe he can kind of go to the bench and take Jackson Hayes minutes, and we kind of see how that works. But how much that really makes sense, it's kind of up in the air. So I think the Kings would probably be the best destination. Send Brandon Ingram back to California, this time not to the Lakers, this time to the Kings. Try and get yourself a star point guard to pair with Zion that can kind of have that fast pace. I think, in college we saw Zion play super well with that fast pace. If you can get him to buy into defense once he comes back and kind of hopefully slims down and is the player that you drafted him to be, then you could, be in a good position. You also have Jonas Valanciunas down below. You kind of fill in the middle spots and see how that goes. But the Pelicans are kind of in a bad situation. I feel bad for Ingram, and right now I don't really feel bad for Zion because I don't know what's going on with him being this big. You know what I mean? Like that seems like it's his choice, and he did that to himself. So he's got to kind of deal with that. Now, if it's like mental health or something like that, which it could totally be. I mean, we've seen players get super big because of mental health before. So if it is something like that, obviously I hope he gets better and whatever in that facet, and hope he heals and can get back on the court and play good basketball, because he's one of my favorite players in the league. So yeah, I mean, Pelicans are kind of a dumpster fire. Let me know what you guys think. Where could Brandon Ingram go? Is it really realistic for the Pelicans to even make moves, or are they kind of stuck with the roster that they have and just at the bottom of the conference? Also, would it be better for them to wait to make moves until the offseason, where you can potentially get a number 1 and number 2 overall pick where they're sitting at now, and maybe that makes you move to Apollo Banchero or something like that instead of a Zion, and you trade Zion in that case. If Zion doesn't play the whole season and doesn't change some stuff like that. Maybe Zion looks to be the better trade option for them, as Brandon Ingram has already proven he's going to play and be a proven commodity for you. Not entirely sure, but the Pelicans have a lot to decide on in the coming months and in the coming weeks, really, because they have the assets and the picks to do it. It's just this roster is pretty pitiful, and I just feel bad for Pelicans fans because, oh man, you guys can't catch a break. Doesn't matter how many number 1 overall picks you guys get. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me today. Hope you guys enjoy it. It's been your boy Dom, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace out.